Everybody good?
We're good.
Everybody ready? Okay, I'm ready to go. On June 7th, 2023, the Commonwealth alleged that Jeffrey Cote, age 55, broke into the home of his ex-girlfriend in the town of Adams, Massachusetts at approximately 5 a.m. The victim was stabbed numerous times, including in the shoulder and the neck area. The victim was able to flee to a neighbor's house, and the Adams police were called and dispatched. The police, along with first responders, treated the victim's wounds, and she was transported to Berkshire Medical Center with very serious injuries. Simultaneously, the police responded to Cote's residence at 498 Chapel Hill Road in Savoy, Massachusetts. Law enforcement response included the Adams Police Department, the State Police Detective Unit assigned to our office, the Massachusetts State Police Cheshire Barracks units, including the Massachusetts Special Tactical Operations Team, the Crisis Negotiation Unit, and Troop Beat Patrol. Cote was unable to be located, and subsequently law enforcement began a search. Today, along with the Adams Police Department and the Berkshire Law Enforcement Task Force, the Massachusetts Special Emergency Response Team, CERT, and the Massachusetts State Police K-9 Unit recovered Mr. Cote on his property in Savoy. Mr. Cote was found deceased. The Berkshire District Attorney's Office was immediately involved in the investigation and the ultimate charges that are brought in this case. The Berkshire District Attorney's Office Victim Witness Advocate Program was in constant communication with the victim. As you can imagine, the victim was in fear, the defendant was at large. Upon the release from the hospital, a victim advocate then ensured the victim was safe. She was placed in an undisclosed location so that the defendant could not locate her. The Berkshire District Attorney's Office takes domestic violence extremely seriously. And this case demonstrates exactly why action is required. I want to thank the state police, the local law enforcement for their perseverance in locating Cote. And in the remote, rugged terrain of the Berkshires can be very difficult to navigate, as you all can imagine. And they did an excellent job in locating it. It took us some time. This was thick, dense area that they were involved in. We brought the K-9 units up today. However, the actual CERT team found Mr. Cote. We were unable to determine when he died. The Office of Medical Examiners has come. They're in the process of retrieving the body, and we have more information about how he died. But I can tell you that it was a death by suicide. So we're confident in what the ME will find. So with that, I'll take any brief questions. I don't have a lot more I can give you, but sure.
Can you release any more information about the suicide verdict?
No, I really wouldn't want to do that. His family has just been notified,
okay.
And in deference to his family, I really don't want to give any more detail about the manner in which he died. But I just can tell you that he did die by manner of suicide.
What was the distance to Mr. Cote's house from the spot he was
Good
found?
question. About a half mile. It was on his property. It was about a half mile. We assume that he had left the scene. I know that he had left the scene in Adams at a high rate of speed, approximately 70, 80 miles an hour, based upon the time it took him to get to his home. So he raced on back, and it appears at that point he had entered the woods, because shortly thereafter we were at the property with the state police, and we couldn't find him. And subsequently, the search is really heavily dense area up in Savoy. They searched as far as they could. So we thought today there was one quadrant we hadn't hit yet, and that was the quadrant in which he was found in today. And we did have the dogs here, but luckily the team found him at that point in time.
Were any weapons found near his body?
No weapons were found near his body. That was one of the first questions I asked. I thought that he was known to have firearms, so we were concerned. That's why we did the release when we did it, because we knew that he had numerous firearms, and we were concerned for the public safety. And obviously, we were very concerned for the victim's safety. We didn't want him going back to locate her, so we put her in an undisclosed location, and we were able to keep her safe. And we advised her of what's happened today, and the police departments have advised the Cote family of what's going on. We wanted to release that all until we spoke to any of you today, so that in deference to each of the respective families. It's an awful tragedy, but again, it's domestic violence, and we have to make domestic violence a top priority, and we do that within this office. But this just shows you how bad it can go. And a woman with serious established could have lost her life, and now a man is deceased because of that.
Had any neighbors reported seeing Mr. Cote in the week since the manhunt began?
No, they saw him. There was as happens to be, there was that morning at about 4:30. There was an Adams police officer that happens to do his daily routine jogging by. He saw Mr. Cote's vehicle. We now know to be Mr. Cote's vehicle in the driveway of her house. It was running with the lights on. So we're assuming, we know that he had kicked the door in, went in there, assaulted her. She was able to escape, went to the neighbor's house. The neighbors called 911, and that's when the police responded and found. And I give the credit to all responders in the police department for saving her life. They administered first aid right to her. She had a very bad wound from a clavicle down into her lung area, and she had a very bad wound to her neck area. And so I commend them for what I consider saving her life. They weren't life-threatening by the time they got there to the hospital, but it was very scary situation for everybody that was involved.
Can you
Did Cody have
comment
a
on
criminal record prior to all this?
I really don't know that yet, and I haven't looked into his background, and I don't want to comment on that yet.
Did you determine a motive for Cody's attack?
The only thing we know that it was just a domestic. They were girlfriend boyfriend, and it was a domestic assault. That's all I know at this stage. Obviously, because he's gone, and she was in the hospital for a bit, and she's been released, and she was obviously scared and nervous while he was out and about. And we'll meet with her. Our office has been meeting with her. Our victim advocates have been meeting with her, but more about her safety. We will get into those details. That's why we haven't been able to elicit any more information at that time yet.
Do you know when their relationship ended?
I'm not even sure if it did end. I don't know that. I know they were in a relationship for 15 years. So I don't know.
Any children?
Not that I'm aware of.
Is there any relationship between him and Kelsey Cody?
No relationship whatsoever. That's another good question. I asked that myself first up. No relationship.
Can you comment on their professions, their occupations?
That I'm not familiar with that either. Not at this stage.
What resources does your office have for victims of domestic violence and for prosecuting domestic violence?
That's another good question. We have a domestic violence unit here, and so we have specialists. We have specialized advocates that deal directly with that deal with victims of domestic violence. We have prosecutors that are specifically assigned for that. And as a matter of fact, I had sent a number of advocates and ADAs to a conference in Atlanta in the first week of April, so they were up to speed on all the new nuances and the new comings of domestic violence. So our office is taking it very seriously, and we're training. We're doing a lot of training with our advocates and with our ADAs on the issue of domestic violence because it's so prevalent in our community, and we're trying to make sure. In this case, really highlights why it's such a problem and why we have to address it and make sure that we keep it on the forefront and understand that these things happen. It's the reason why we try to force a lot of these cases, even when the victims are reluctant to go forward, to try to force these cases to go forward, just because we have other victims that person may reach out to and harm. This one was very volatile. It happened real quick. I don't know what set him off. I have no idea at this stage. But he obviously was set off, and he came flying in there, kicked the door down, and then assaulted her.
I know you've already stated that you don't know how he died.
I know how he died. I don't want to say how he died.
Yes, or when he died.
We do not know when he died.
Is any of that relevant to this overall scenario, though?
No, not at all. Not at all. When he died, it doesn't really matter to us at this stage. I mean, obviously the medical examiner will do their reports. I assume how he died, but we'll find out better when the ME does its report.
So, do you have any reason?
Of the land of his property?
I don't know, Ryan. Do you know the size of the property? This is, by the way, this is Detective Lieutenant Ryan Dickinson. He's in charge of our Berkshire Detective Unit, and with me is also Marianne Shelby. She's the first assistant to the Berkshire District Attorney's Office. Ryan, you can comment on that.
What was the acreage that needed to be searched of his property? That this was the last parcel.
Today we had, I believe, an 84-acre parcel that we were.
So that was just today.
That was just today. So bigger than that. I mean, a few hundred acres probably we were searching.
So has the entire search been on his property specifically?
I don't believe so. I think he only had 12 acres or so, maybe. So, and don't quote me on that, but he had a smaller parcel than what we were searching. So we were searching neighbors, and I don't know if it was state property or whatever, but it's very rural up there.
But he was found on his parcel?
I'd have to confirm that. I can't speak exactly to where
It was my understanding it was on his parcel, but I'm not sure. I don't think anybody can see the boundary markers up there. He had 12 acres, so whatever the distance was. We know it was a desolate area. There was nothing else. There was no other homes or structures around that area.
Did Mr. Cody live alone?
I believe he lived alone, right?
Yes.
Yes, he did.
Was there past history with this character in any way that you guys are aware of?
That I don't want to comment at this point in time. Again, we still, even though the case is somewhat ended because of that, but we still follow through with all that because we want to make sure we're researching all aspects of what happened, what occurred here, so that we can avoid this happening in the future. So we tend to learn from that as we gather more information. But we will continue to conduct our investigation for those purposes and those purposes only.
Was there an active search every day since the incident?
Just about every day, right?
just about every day. Not every day, but.
And what can you say about the manpower? How much resources did you put into that?
It was substantial.
Substantial. I mean, we had state troopers from all over the state that we would come out and have the CERT teams come out and stuff like that. So there was multiple days where we had that, and then there was other days where we had just a few local resources out looking. And then we had, if today wasn't successful, we had other searches lined up for this coming weekend.
So there were no sightings of Cody from
No,
the 7th?
no one has seen him since the morning of June 7th, so the day that this happened. Nobody else had seen him from that point.
And you don't have any indication of where he went while you were looking for him?
The information we have at this time, it appears to us that he went back to that home. I don't think he ever left that area ever again. So I can't tell you when he died, but I can tell you that I don't think he left that area. We didn't find any other sightings, any other indicators that he had left that area other than staying in that particular location.
Any neighbors have security cameras?
No, I think it's so large that there wasn't anything in that.
Everything was canvassed. We have no record that he ever left the woods.
Right.
How close are his nearby neighbors?
It's a pretty rural area.
Okay.
They're not it's not within sight of one another.
I'm sure the neighbors were as concerned as everybody else too. I think a lot of people are staying inside because we didn't know where he was, and we did release and announce that we were concerned that he may be armed and dangerous because we did know that he had weapons, that he may have been a hunter, so there was a substantial amount of weapons that we were concerned about. But there were no weapons that were located near his body.
Were there, I mean, obviously there's probably weapons in the house. Did you search the house?
The house was searched as part of the investigation, yes.
Okay.
Anything else? That's all I have.
How much time was spent before the canvassing actually started? I know that there were police surrounding his house at a certain point, thinking he might be inside.
I think we went right to the house, and then we had to wait to get authorization to go in.
As far as talking to neighbors?
Basically, before the search started outside of the home, how long was that period between once that started and when the actual incident happened?
Well, they responded immediately. Once, right away, all the police departments responded right away to Savoy.
Right, but did they congregate at his home thinking he was inside, or?
We originally believed he was inside, and until we got the authorization to go in, they waited until it was time to go in, and then they searched the house. He was not in the house.
Right, I'm just wondering how long that period was where he was
Short-
not in the
short-
house and everybody was thinking.
Short bit of time, because we responded right there, and it was secured. We knew right where he lived, and they responded right to that location, so it was not much time after it occurred.
Quick question. Do you think the weather conditions affected the search at all?
Yes, substantially.
Okay.
I think we had a lot of rain, and it also, I think, it affects how we found the body. So the weather was cold and rainy for the last, as you all know, for the last few days. So it made it much more difficult for all these troopers to traverse what is very, very thick terrain. And he was very familiar with the property and the area around there. He was a woodsman. He was in the woods a lot. So we were concerned about that. Again, he was a hunter. We had no idea where he was going to be. At the same time, too, we also didn't know if he was armed and dangerous when we're looking through the woods. So the officers had to care about their safety as well as they're trying to search for the individual. So go slow.
Were there trails cut through that acreage?
I'm not aware of that.
There's a lot of trails up there. Old abandoned, hunting trails, old logging trails, old camps, etc.
Okay. Ryan, can you just spell your last name for us, please?
DICKINSON.
Yeah. I got it. Thank you.
Okay, that's all I've got. Everybody good?
Can we
Can I
have
just
spelling
ask
last name
you-
too? Mine is Shelby, Shelvey.
I'm just curious when you might be able to tell us if there were prior domestic violence incidents between these two.
Give me a clue when we're going to close the investigation.
Uh,
Everything will be after the ME's report, no matter what, because we still, again, we'd like to collect all the data first. At the end, we can give you information once we cleared the case, and we're sure that's all we've got to it. But we have to just check into everything at this stage. It still is really an active investigation, even though there's a death. So there's a lot of things that we have to see and learn from it. So we can give you more detailed information once and it'd probably be helpful too. At that time, you'll know what the ME's results were, what was the actual manner of death, and we'll be happy to provide that information once we've had it and received it, and the family is